The metal doors of the alien research station slid open with a deep growl, as if the structure itself did not want to be part of what was happening inside. Bright white lights fell on a long hallway where cold air moved like a warning whisper. At the end of that hallway stood Commander Zalara, tall, silver-skinned, eyes sharp like glass blades. She was known across the sector for her strength, discipline, and emotionless logic. But today, something unusual touched her face. It was not fear. It was not confusion. It was something even more dangerous for a soldier like her. It was curiosity. Inside the chamber, a young human sat with metal cuffs around his wrists. His name was Evan. His body looked thin compared to alien warriors. His skin looked soft, easy to bruise, and his dark hair fell over his eyes. The aliens had been mocking his species for years. Humans are fragile, humans break fast, humans are weak. But Zalara did not see weakness when she looked at him. She saw control, calm, something that made her chest tighten for a moment. She quickly ignored. Evan looked up as the door opened fully. His eyes met hers, and he smiled softly, but with a confidence she did not expect from a prisoner. Zalara walked toward him, each step echoing through the silent room. The other scientists kept a safe distance, hiding behind their screens. They all remembered what happened to the last alien who tried to test Evan. The dent in the reinforced wall was still there. And no one had forgotten the alarm that rang for 2 hours because the human had broken the measurement sensors just by standing there under pressure. Zalara stopped in front of him. "Human," she said, keeping her tone sharp, "your strength tests begin now. Cooperate, or the council will decide your fate." Evan tilted his head. "Are you sure your equipment can handle me this time?" Her jaw tightened. No prisoner had ever spoken to her like that. Yet his voice wasn't mocking, it was strangely gentle, like he already knew something she didn't. She pushed the thought away and signaled to the guards. They activated the restraints. The cuffs glowed blue, tightening around Evan's wrists with magnetic pressure, but he didn't flinch. Zalara stepped closer and observed the human carefully. Even under harsh lights, his breathing stayed steady. She increased the weight of the cuffs by 20%. Still nothing. Then 40%. Not even a wince. The guards exchanged nervous glances. A human should have been crying by now. Or begging. Or collapsing. Zalara raised one brow. "You feel nothing?" Evan shrugged lightly. "I've had worse mornings." She didn't want to admit it, but a small spark of interest moved through her chest. She walked around him slowly, studying the lines of tension in his muscles. They were relaxed, too relaxed. She could not read him, and that bothered her more than she expected. The next phase of the test began. The floor under Evan lit up with pulses of blue energy. It created gravitational force pressure that pushed down on the prisoner like the weight of a mountain. 2 scientists adjusted the levels, whispering nervously. 1.5 gravity, 1. Said, 2 gravity, the other muttered. Evan simply inhaled and exhaled like a man stretching after a long nap. Zalara tightened her grip on the datapad. Increased to 3. The room fell silent. 3 gravity could crush bones of weaker species. The energy pulsed, glowing brighter. And Evan lifted his head casually, as if nothing had changed. He looked at her again. "Is this supposed to impress me or scare me?" Zalara felt her heartbeat skip. She should not feel that. Not for a test subject. Not for a human. One of the scientists called out, panicked. "Commander!" The restraints. Before he could finish, a sharp metallic crack echoed. The cuffs broke, not because Evan pulled hard. He had simply adjusted his posture, and the magnetic clamps shattered like glass around him. Pieces fell to the floor. The guards took a step back instantly, weapons raised, but Evan didn't attack. He didn't even stand. He just looked down at the broken restraints with a faint smile of surprise. "Oh," he said softly. Guess those weren't as strong as you hoped. The scientists scrambled to shut down the systems. Solara stared at him with a mixture of shock and something else. Something she tried hard to hide. Humans weren't supposed to be this strong. Humans were supposed to break easily. Yet here he was calm, breathing normally, acting like he had done nothing unusual. Solara approached him again, slower this time. "Human," she said in a lower voice. "What are you?" Evan looked up, eyes steady, not intimidated by her height or her authority. "Just a guy trying to survive," he answered. "But you keep underestimating my species." She opened her mouth to respond, but he continued, quietly, "Maybe you should be more careful with the next test, Commander. You might not want to see what breaks." Her throat tightened. "What are you implying?" He leaned forward slightly. "Your equipment isn't ready. And neither are you." For the first time in years, Solara felt a cold shiver crawl down her spine. Something dangerous was happening here. Something she couldn't control. Something she didn't understand. And she wanted to understand it, which was exactly why this experiment should never have happened, because Solara, elite soldier, loyal commander, emotionless warrior, was now truly curious about the human who refused to break. And sometimes, curiosity is the first crack. Before everything else collapses. The research station felt different after Evan broke the restraints. The air seemed heavier, as if the metal walls themselves were holding their breath. Everyone walked quietly in the halls, whispering the same name, Evan, the human, the one who shattered equipment built for war beasts. Fear traveled through the station like a hidden current, touching every alien mind. But inside Commander Solara, the fear was mixed with something else. Something she did not want to admit even to herself. Curiosity. She had watched warriors break under pressure far weaker than what Evan endured without effort. She had seen prisoners cry, beg, scream. But this human, with his soft face, warm eyes, and relaxed breath, did not fear her. He did not fear their technology. He did not fear death. That alone made Solara restless. She replayed the footage of the experiment again and again. Evan's face remained calm, almost peaceful. Not once did his heartbeat spike. Not once did he look hurt. It went against everything she knew about human supposedly fragile creatures from a small, unimportant planet. Her soldiers kept asking if they should keep the human sedated, but she refused. She wanted him awake. She wanted to see his reactions. She wanted to understand whatever force lived inside him. When she entered the holding room again, Evan was sitting on the floor, resting his back against the wall. His posture was casual, almost too casual for someone locked in an alien ship. He looked up the moment she stepped inside, as if he could sense her before she arrived. "You're back," he said. Solara did not like the warmth in his tone. Nobody in the galaxy spoke to her like that. She kept her voice cold. "You broke classified equipment. You will explain how." Evan chuckled, a soft laugh that echoed strangely in the metal room. "Maybe your equipment was too confident." Her jaw tightened at the subtle challenge. She stepped closer, studying every detail of him. Humans should not be capable of that level of resistance. "But you saw it," he said quietly. "So maybe your idea of humans is wrong." His voice was calm, but the message shook her more than she expected. She had spent her entire life believing humans were nothing more than fragile explorers with short lives. But this human stood in front of her like he was unbreakable. Solara folded her arms, trying to stay logical. "I want to know what fuels your strength." Evan lifted his eyes to hers, and for a moment she felt as if he was reading her thoughts. "Maybe strength isn't always muscle," he murmured. "Sometimes it's the will to survive." She hated how his words made her pause. No soldier, none in her entire career, had spoken to her like that. Not with arrogance, but with a truth that cut deeper than a blade. Solara turned away from him before he saw the flicker of emotion on her face. "Stand up," she ordered. He rose slowly, not out of fear, but out of respect she couldn't understand. She scanned him, checking posture, breathing, tension in his body. Everything was steady, as if he was preparing for something bigger, something he already accepted. She walked around him in a circle, her boots echoing. "Your species is physically weak. You have no claws, no armor, no enhanced senses." Evan shrugged. "And yet here I am." That sentence struck harder than any weapon. She moved closer than she intended, close enough to see the small flecks of gold in his brown eyes. She felt her chest tighten again, annoying, distracting, dangerous. She stepped back quickly. "Another test begins soon." "Another?" he asked with a smirk. "Didn't the last one scare your people?" Solara ignored the way his smirk affected her. "This test will be different, controlled, focused." He tilted his head. "Is it your test? Or theirs?" Her pulse jumped, though she hid it well. Somehow the human could see through her, as if he understood she was no longer testing for the Empire. She was testing for herself. She didn't answer him. Instead, she signaled 2 guards. They entered, weapons ready, but their hands shook slightly. Evan did nothing threatening, yet their fear was obvious. Solara noticed, and something inside her tightened. The guards feared Evan, but she felt drawn to him. She refused to let that show doubt as the guards stepped forward. Evan whispered, "You don't trust them, do you?" Her breath caught for a second. How did he know that? She had not spoken a word. But the way she positioned herself between Evan and the guards betrayed her. She turned sharply. "Enough. The next test starts in 1 hour. Be prepared." Before leaving, she looked at him one last time. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He simply watched her with a strange patience, as if he knew she would return. And she hated how right he was, because as she walked down the hallway, she realized something dangerous. She wasn't studying the human anymore. She was watching him. Understanding him. And wanting to know more. In a station full of fear. Only one truth echoed inside her mind. This human was becoming her weakness, and that was the beginning of a danger far greater than anything the galaxy had ever tested. Asterisk. The rumors spread faster than the alarms ever had. By the next cycle, every alien on the research station knew one thing. Commander Solara was planning something unusual with the human. Soldiers whispered in the training halls, technicians exchanged looks in lifts, and scientists spoke in low, nervous tones. No one dared say it to her face, but everyone wondered the same question. Why was the commander giving so much attention to a fragile creature? Solara ignored the gossip, but she could not ignore the feeling inside her, a strange pull toward Evan that she could not understand. His calm eyes, his unshakable strength, the way he spoke to her without fear. It all stayed in her mind like a quiet storm. She entered the strategy room, where the high-ranking scientists stood waiting. Screens showed Evan's broken restraints, the crushed bed panel, the gravity test failure. Their voices shook as they reported the results. "He is dangerous," one said. "He must be restricted," another insisted. "He must be terminated," a third whispered. Solara's gaze snapped toward the last one, cold and sharp enough to freeze the air. "You will not touch him." The room fell silent. Even the machines seemed to hold their breath. Solara rarely raised her voice, yet the warning in her tone made every scientist step back. After the meeting, she stayed alone in the room, staring at the footage. Evan breaking the restraints. Evan standing calmly under pressure. Evan smiling at her like she wasn't the deadliest warrior on the station. She hated that smile. She also wanted to see it again. The thought irritated her more than any failed test. When she walked into Evan's cell, he was sitting on the edge of the reinforced bed, tapping his fingers softly against the metal, listening to the tiny vibrations it made. His eyes rose to meet hers instantly. She noticed he always sensed her before she spoke. "You look tense," Evan said. "Did the council complain about me again?" Solara stepped closer, ignoring his teasing tone. "We are conducting a new trial. A more focused one. A test of endurance." He raised a brow. "And you picked me again?" "You are the only human here," she replied. He smirked. "And apparently the most interesting creature you've ever met." Her pulse jumped, and she quickly looked away. "Do not overestimate your importance." But he had already seen the tiny change in her expression. It only made his smirk deepen. Solara cleared her throat. "This test takes place in the reinforced gravity chamber. It is stronger than the previous one." Evan studied her face for a second. "But that's not all, is it?" She hated how easily he read her. "It will include durability testing on the bedframe," she admitted. A slow smile formed on his lips. "So this is the rumor I heard outside." Her eyes narrowed. "Rumor?" "That the commander wants to know what breaks first." He leaned a little closer. "The human or the bed?" Heat rose on her cheeks, a reaction she'd never experienced before. She stepped back quickly to hide it, but Evan noticed anyway. His soft laugh filled the room, warm against the cold metal walls. "You aliens have strange ways of testing things," he murmured. Solara forced herself to regain her cold composure. "This is nothing but scientific procedure. Do not imagine more." He tilted his head with a gentle amusement. "You say that, but you're the one choosing the tests." Her jaw tightened. "You talk too much. And you keep coming back," he replied simply. The air between them grew tight, thick with something neither could name. Solara felt her heart beat faster again. She feared no soldier, no weapon, no battlefield, but this human made her feel something far more dangerous. Something uncontrollable. A knock on the door broke the moment. 2 soldiers entered with the test report. They avoided Evan's eyes like he was a wild beast. "Commander," one said with a shaky voice, "the gravity chamber is ready. Reinforced bed panels installed. Sensors recalibrated." Evan stood, stretching his arms casually, as if preparing for a workout instead of a life-threatening experiment. "Sounds fun." Solara stared at him. "You treat this lightly." He walked past the guards, stopping only beside her. He lowered his voice so only she could hear. "I'm not afraid of that chamber," he whispered. "I'm curious about something else." She swallowed. "What, you?" he said softly. "You want to see my limits more than your scientists do." She froze. For a moment, she couldn't move or speak. It felt like he had touched a nerve she didn't know she had. He stepped away before she answered, giving her space she didn't realize she needed. Solara followed him out of the cell, but her steps were slower. A part of her deep, hidden felt exposed dot in the hallway. Every alien stopped and stared as the human walked beside the commander. No chains. No fear. No trembling guards holding weapons to his back. Just a human walking with confidence that didn't match his fragile appearance. As they approached the gravity chamber, Solara finally spoke. "You understand this test may break something." Evan glanced at her with a calm smile. "Maybe. And you are not afraid?" "Only curious," he said. "About what breaks first." The doors opened. With a hiss, the human stepped inside, and Solara realized she wasn't afraid for him. She was afraid for herself, because part of her wanted the human to pass every test. And another part of her was terrified he actually could. Asterisk. The reinforced gravity chamber was the quietest place on the entire research station. Thick walls swallowed every sound, and cold blue lights glowed from the ceiling like watching eyes. This chamber wasn't built for comfort. It was built for war training, made to push even elite alien soldiers to their limits. But today, it held only 2 people, a human who refused to break. and a commander who refused to understand why she cared. Evan stepped inside first, scanning the room with a calm interest that didn't fit the danger around him. The bed frame, a thick slab of reinforced alloy, stood near the center. It was stronger than the metal he'd broken before, upgraded after the last test he'd accidentally destroyed. Commander Zalara followed him, her boots echoing softly. The door closed behind them with a deep metallic thud. They were locked inside by her choice. Evan glanced at the sealed door. So, no scientists watching through windows this time. Zalara pressed a small device, activating the chamber. The observation team is outside. They will only see readings, not visuals. Evan smiled. You wanted privacy? Her jaw tightened. This is not personal. But the slight change in her breathing said otherwise. The gravity setting began at normal level. A soft hum filled the room as the floor underneath them came alive with energy. Evan didn't move, didn't tense. He simply watched Zalara with those calm, human eyes that always forced her to look away first. You're too relaxed, she muttered. Maybe you're too tense, he replied. She hated that he always had an answer ready. It destabilized her control. She turned away from him and walked to the control panel. Gravity increase, 1.5, she ordered. The air became heavier. The ground pulled harder at their bodies. Zalara's shoulders tightened. Her body adjusted easily. Her species was built for harsh environments, but she watched. Evan carefully. He inhaled once, slow, steady. You're fine? She asked. I'm fine, he said, smiling again. Still not scary. She stepped closer, eyes narrowing. To gravity. The chamber shook slightly as the pressure increased. Many alien soldiers trained under 2 gravity and ended up on their knees. Evan didn't even bend. His breathing changed only a little. But he held his posture perfectly, Zalara felt. Something tightened inside her. Chest, admiration, curiosity, fear, attraction. She couldn't choose which one was worse. She circled him slowly, observing every movement. This level crushes most species. Maybe your species worries too much, Evan said softly. Zalara stopped walking. Something in his tone, calm, steady, almost protective, made her lose focus for a moment. She cleared her throat and reached for the next switch. 3 gravity, she commanded. The hum rose into a deeper growl. The air thickened so quickly that even Zalara felt the weight pressing on her spine. She could still move, but it took effort-controlled strength. Trained muscles. Evan, however, stood steady as a stone. His lips parted slightly as if adjusting, but he didn't waver. Not 1 inch. Unbelievable, she whispered without meaning to. He met her eyes. Still fragile? Her heart skipped a beat. She turned away quickly, hiding the heat rising beneath her skin. How did he make her react like this? She had faced monstrous creatures, criminal warlords, and deadly storms. None of them had ever made her heart shift inside her chest. But this human, this calm, smiling human managed to do it with a single sentence. She stepped toward the bed frame. Sit there. The endurance test begins. Evan walked to the reinforced bed and sat with a relaxed posture, hands resting loosely beside him. The metal creaked under the heavy gravity, but it held. For now, Zalara stood in front of him, studying every detail of the moment. If he broke, she would record it. If the bed broke, she would have no explanation that made sense. Evan leaned back slightly. Commander, are you sure you're testing me? And not yourself? Her breath caught. Stop speaking, she said. But her voice had softened without her permission. He looked up at her with quiet confidence. You're not afraid of me. You're afraid of what you're starting to feel. She froze. No one had ever said something like that to her. Not even her own people dared to speak about her emotions. Her fingers tightened. Her pulse quickened. The chamber's lights flickered. Before she could respond, A sharp metallic sound filled the room. Crrrkkkk. The bed frame cracked, not because of Evan's weight, but because the chamber itself couldn't handle both the increased gravity and his unyielding posture. Zalara stepped back in shock. Impossible. Evan lifted one eyebrow. Guess the bed wasn't strong enough. The alarms outside the room began to beep rapidly, warning of structure stress. But inside the chamber, silence settled again, thick, heavy, and strangely intimate. Zalara finally met his eyes again. And for the first time in her life, she didn't know if she wanted the test to stop or to go even further, because the real danger wasn't the bed breaking. It was the feeling that something inside her was starting to break too. Asterisk. The sirens outside the gravity chamber howled like wounded machines, warning the crew that the reinforced bed frame, an object designed to withstand alien soldiers, had cracked under pressure. Yet inside the sealed room, neither Evan nor Zalara moved. The red emergency lights painted their faces, turning the moment into something almost unreal. Evan sat calmly, almost too calmly, on the fractured bed. The metal beneath him had split in two directions, like it had tried to resist him but failed miserably. He wasn't even breathing hard. He simply looked at the crack under him with mild curiosity, as if it were nothing more than a loose tile. Zalara stared at the break, unable to speak. Her brain kept repeating the same impossible truth. The bed broke. Not him. Her training told her to call this a malfunction. Her logic told her to blame the engineers. But her instinct, something she never trusted, whispered that this human was far beyond any creature she had ever seen. The chamber lights flickered as the gravity began to stabilize. In the silence, Evan finally lifted his gaze and met hers. "You look surprised," he said softly. Surprised wasn't the right word. Shocked wasn't either. What Zalara felt was closer to awe, cold, unsettling awe that made her chest tighten. "You should be injured," she muttered. "Your bones should have cracked. Your muscles should have torn. Humans do not survive this." Evan shrugged. "Maybe your data on humans is outdated." She didn't want to react, but the corner of her mouth twitched in disbelief. Even now, after breaking equipment built for war beasts, the human joked like the pressure meant nothing to him. Outside the chamber, frantic voices buzzed through the comm system. "Commander, the structure readings are beyond safe levels. Open the door immediately. He'll kill us all if he gets out." That last sentence made Zalara's blood boil. She pressed the comm button sharply. "Silence your fear. The human has done nothing wrong. Maintain distance and wait for my command." The line went dead instantly. No one dared argue with her again. She turned back to Evan, but when she saw him standing from the cracked bed, something inside her tightened. Not out of fear, but out of the sudden awareness of how close he truly was to her limits. He walked toward her slowly, each step steady, unhurried. Even with gravity normalizing, the chamber felt heavier, not from pressure, but from the weight of the moment. "You're not afraid of me," Evan said gently. "But you're afraid for me." Zalara felt her breath pause. His words hit deeper than she expected. She hated that he could see through her so clearly. "You are a test subject," she insisted, though her voice lacked its usual sharpness. "Nothing more." Evan stepped close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. "Then why do you defend me? Why do you keep coming back? Why did you lock yourself in here with me?" Zalara's heart hammered in her chest, an unfamiliar, unwelcome weakness. His closeness did something to her that she had no training for. She forced herself to act. She stepped back, trying to regain her control, her logic, her command. "You broke the bed," she said. "Not because you are strong, but because you refuse to break." Evan smiled softly. "Is that a bad thing?" She swallowed, unable to answer. The truth scared her more than she wanted to admit. His strength wasn't only physical. Something inside him, some quiet fire, made him unshakable. It was attractive in a way she didn't understand. A way she couldn't allow herself to understand. Before she could speak, the alarms outside triggered again. This time, the scientists weren't just panicking. They were preparing weapons. Solara heard it in their voices. Fear turning into danger. "They're coming," Evan said. Reading the shift instantly, Solara turned toward the door. Her voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "They fear what they do not understand. They think killing you will fix it, will it?" Evan asked. Her answer came instantly, without hesitation. "No." The lights dimmed completely as the station shifted to combat mode. Heavy doors across the hallway slammed shut. Guards were gathering outside. Solara made a split-second decision she couldn't take back. She reached for Evan's arm. "Stay behind me." He frowned. "You're protecting me now?" "I am protecting what is mine to decide," she snapped. But the tone was too soft, too personal. Evan didn't pull away. Instead, he looked at her with a quiet seriousness she hadn't seen before. "Then let me help you." She stared into his eyes, strong, calm, unbroken, for the first time since meeting him. She understood something terrifying. He wasn't just surviving the tests, he was surviving her. The door outside rattled under force as guards prepared to storm in. Solara lifted her weapon and stepped forward. Evan stepped beside her. Two worlds standing shoulder to shoulder against the galaxy's fear. And for the first time, Solara didn't care who saw it. The chamber door shuddered again, harder this time, as guards gathered outside with charged weapons. Their fear twisted into something dangerous, panic mixed with orders from people who had never seen Evan's calm strength up close. Inside the sealed room, Solara tightened her fingers around her weapon. Her posture was solid, but inside she felt something she had never felt in battle, the fear of losing someone she wasn't supposed to care about. Evan stood beside her, not behind her, despite her orders. She felt the warmth of his presence, steady and unshaking. He wasn't breathing fast. He wasn't nervous. He looked ready. "You understand they won't just detain you," Solara said quietly. "They will aim to kill." Evan nodded. "And what about you?" Her jaw tightened. "If I stand with you, they may kill me too." His eyes softened in a way that made her chest ache. "Then you shouldn't stay." But she didn't move away. The door finally cracked open, flooding the room with harsh red light. 3 guards pushed in first, fear shaking in their hands even as they raised their weapons. "Commander, step aside." One guard shouted. "The human is a threat." Solara stepped forward instead. "Lower your weapons." The guard hesitated. "We have orders. The High Council wants the human neutralized." Evan spoke before she could. "Neutralized? You mean killed?" "Silence." Another guard barked, but Evan did not silence. He took one step closer, and the guard flinched backward like he had seen a monster. Solara pointed her weapon at her own soldiers. "If you fire at him, you fire at me." The entire chamber went still. The guards froze, eyes wide. They had never seen her break protocol. Never seen her rebel. Never seen her protect anyone but the Empire. "Commander," one whispered, "you can't betray your oath." "My oath," she said sharply, "is to protect life, not destroy it out of fear." Before the guards could decide whether to obey or resist, the emergency hallway lights flickered, then went dark. A low warning vibration rolled through the floor. The station had just switched into lockdown. "They're sealing the exits," Solara muttered. "The council wants us contained." "So we break out," Evan said simply. Solara turned sharply to him. "Break out?" "Evan, this is a military station. Hundreds of soldiers. Automated defenses. High-energy barriers. You cannot fight all of them." He smiled gently. "I'm not planning to fight all of them." She felt the heat rise in her chest again, strange, unwelcome, but warm. His confidence wasn't childish. It was powerful, steady, a force she couldn't measure. The guards tried to call for backup, but the comms crackled with distorted noise. It was too late for them. Solara struck first, swift, controlled, non-lethal. One guard fell to the floor unconscious, the others backing away quickly. You're helping the human escape?" One whispered. Solara didn't answer. She grabbed Evan's wrist and pulled him into the hallway. His skin felt warm against her cold fingers, human warmth, grounding, dangerous. They ran down the corridor as heavy doors slammed shut behind them. Sirens howled. Red emergency lights flickered overhead. Twisted shadows chased them down the steel walls. "What's the plan?" Evan asked, running easily despite alarms blaring. Solara tapped a panel, opening a passage that only commanders were allowed to use. "We reach the hangar. If we can get to a ship, we escape before the Council blocks space access." Evan raised a brow. "You're okay with leaving your whole station behind?" She didn't look at him. "I'm not leaving the station. The station is leaving me." They reached a locked bulkhead door. Solara scanned her code, but it flashed red, access denied. "They revoked your clearance already?" Evan asked. She nodded once. "Faster than I expected." Evan placed his hand on the door. "Can you step aside?" "Human, this is reinforced." Before she finished, Evan pressed his palm harder. His muscles tensed, but only for a second. The metal began to bend under his hand, folding like soft clay. Solara stared, stunned. You can do that?" He gave a small grin. "You've been testing me, Commander. You should know by now." She didn't have time to feel the things rising in her chest again. They slipped through the bent metal and entered a narrow maintenance corridor. The sounds of soldiers echoed behind them, shouting, boots hitting metal, weapons charging. They ran again. The maintenance tunnel opened into the hangar platform. A sleek scout ship waited at the far end, small, fast, and easy to launch. Solara felt a spark of hope, short-lived. A squad of elite soldiers stepped between them and the ship, blasters aimed, armor shining. No hesitation. Evan inhaled once. Calm, focused. Solara lifted her weapon, but Evan gently pushed her hand down. "No," he said softly. "You've protected me enough." And before she could stop him, Evan stepped forward, between her and the soldiers, like he had been doing it his whole life. In that moment, she understood something completely, painfully clear. This human wasn't fragile. He wasn't weak. He wasn't breakable. He was something the galaxy had never seen, and she was already his ally, whether the galaxy approved or not. The hangar felt like the heart of a storm. Engines hummed. Alarms wailed. Red lights flashed across metal floors as smoke drifted from damaged panels. And standing in the center of the chaos was Evan, one human against an elite alien squad. Solara stood behind him, weapon raised, but he didn't allow her to step forward. His hand stretched back, touching her arm gently, stopping her without force. For a moment she didn't understand why. Then she saw the look in his eyes. He wasn't protecting himself. He was protecting her. "You don't need to fight them," she whispered. "They are trained killers." Evan turned slightly, enough for her to see the faint smile on his lips. "I don't plan to kill them." "That doesn't matter," she said urgently. "They will kill you." He shook his head. "No, they won't." A soft confidence lived in his voice, something stronger than anger or fear. It wasn't arrogance. It was belief. A belief in his own strength that she still did not fully understand, yet deeply felt. The elite squad moved as one, raising their blasters. "Step away from the human, Commander," the leader announced. "He is declared a threat to the Empire." Solara stepped closer to Evan, refusing to leave him. "If he is a threat, then so am I." The soldiers hesitated. Even the Empire's best warriors feared disobeying Solara. But their orders were clear. Protect the Empire. Eliminate the anomaly. Weapons charged. Blue sparks danced at the tips. Evan exhaled once, slow and steady. Then he stepped forward. Don't. Solara grabbed his hand, but he gently pulled away. I won't hurt them, he whispered. Trust me. It was the first time anyone had asked her that. The soldiers fired. Bolts of blue energy shot across the hangar, filling the air with crackling heat. Evan moved not as a warrior, not as a trained soldier, but with something else entirely. A raw instinct. A will that bent the world around him. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He simply moved through the attack. Blaster energy struck him and fizzled against his skin like raindrops hitting stone. Shock rippled across the squad. What how? The leader shouted. Xe Lara froze. Even she had never seen such resistance. Humans shouldn't be able to endure a single bolt, but Evan took a full barrage and didn't even flinch. He walked right up to the line of soldiers and placed his hand on the leader's weapon. Not aggressively, just firmly. Stop, he said calmly. The weapon bent under his grip with a soft metallic groan. The soldiers stumbled back, terror replacing discipline. For the first time they looked small, fragile, breakable. Solara stepped forward, unable to look away. She felt her heartbeat like a drum. Evan wasn't just strong, he was beyond anything the Empire had ever classified. He wasn't a test subject. He wasn't a prisoner. He wasn't fragile. He was human. But something more. Evan turned to Solara. We need to leave. She nodded quickly. Together they ran toward the scout ship. Behind them, no soldier dared to fire again. Not after what they witnessed. The hangar doors began to close, sealing them in, but Solara leapt onto the pilot platform and slammed the override. Evan pushed the heavy hatch closed behind him, the metal groaning under his hands. Within seconds, the engines roared to life, shaking the entire bay. Strap in. Solara shouted. Evan slid into the co-pilot seat. The ship blasted forward, smashing through the closing hangar doors just before they sealed shut. Sparks rained across the view screen as they shot into open space. For a long moment, silence filled the small cockpit. Only their breathing remained. Solara looked at him, still stunned. What are you? Evan turned his head slowly, his eyes warm, calm, unbreakable. Just human. She didn't believe that. Couldn't believe it. But she didn't argue. Not now. The stars stretched before them like endless roads. But Solara knew the truth. The Empire would come after them. They had defied the High Council. They had broken station protocol. They had escaped with a classified subject. And worst of all, they had chosen each other. Evan leaned back in his seat, breathing softly. You know they'll hunt us. I know, Solara said. And you're still here? He asked gently. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at him, the human who broke her machines, her rules, and her defenses without even trying. Finally she spoke, her voice low. Yes, I'm still here. Evan smiled. A small, soft, unguarded smile. So, what now? He asked. Solara stared at the stars, then at him. Now we show the galaxy what they fear the most. And what's that? He asked. She leaned slightly closer, her voice almost a whisper. A human who doesn't break. And a commander who refuses to let him stand alone. The ship disappeared into the darkness. Two fugitives, two allies, two forces the galaxy would soon learn to fear. Together.